fear of becoming an outcast in your own community. And that culture of fear has replaced our culture of free speech in this country. If you ask me, what's the best measure of how we're doing in America? What is it? Is it the number of ballots we cast every November? Is it the number of green pieces of paper in our bank account? No. It is the percentage of people who feel free to say what they actually think in public. Right now, we're doing poorly. The only way we're going to do better is by all of us, not just me, all of us starting to speak the truth in the open again. I'll tell you about my family and why we're in this. My parents came to this country 40 years ago with no money in search of opportunity. In a single generation, I have gone on to found multiple successful companies. I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, who's a throat surgeon at Ohio State. That's where she is today, taking care of cancer survivors. Raising our two sons. My older one's with me, younger one's with her today. We'll be together this weekend. Following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I'm worried that that American dream isn't going to exist for our two sons and their generation unless we step up and do something about it. We're in the middle of an identity crisis right now as a country. We are lost. We have lost our way when faith, patriotism, hard work, family, these things have disappeared. And that leaves a moral vacuum, a black hole in our hearts. And when you have a black hole that runs that deep, that is when the poison fills the void. It almost doesn't matter what the poison is, actually. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, COVIDism, depression, anxiety, fentanyl, suicide. These are symptoms of a deeper void of purpose and meaning in this country. And this is where I'm disappointed in the Republican Party. That's what pulled me into this race. I think we've grown lazy as a party. We've become a party that will let the other side fill that vacuum with their vision. They'll give us race, gender, sexuality, climate. Agree or not, they'll give us a vision. But we've grown lazy just criticizing what the other side puts up without deciding what we actually stand for, have the courage to stand for something. Individual, family, nation, God. That beats race, gender, sexuality, and climate if we have the courage to actually stand for something. We can't anymore just be the party that is running from something. We got to start running to something. To our vision of what it means to be an American today. What does it mean to be a citizen of this nation? To me, it means we believe in the ideals of 1776. Ideals like meritocracy and the pursuit of excellence. The idea that you get ahead in this country not on the color of your skin, but on the content of your character and your contributions. That is why I've said that we will end racial quota systems and affirmative action in every area of American life. It's been a cancer on our national soul, and we are done with it. It means we believe in the rule of law. And I say this as the kid of legal immigrants to this country. That means your first act of entering this country cannot break the law. That is why we will use our own military to secure our own southern border and our northern border too. That's what it means to stand for the rule of law in the United States of America. It means that we, the people, create a government that is accountable to us, not the other way around. It means that we, the people, are the ones who elect the people who run the government, not the actual people who are running the government today. The shadow government and the D.C. bureaucracy, the three-letter agencies that are really pulling the strings of power. You want to drain the swamp, here's how you do it. 75% reduction in the number of federal bureaucrats. I'll get that done by the end of my first term. 8-year term limits for the bureaucracy instead of civil service protections. That's how you drain the swamp. You want to actually shut down government agencies that don't exist? Well, we can do that. The FBI, the ATF, the CDC, the U.S. Department of Education. We can't just massage them around the edges. We got to get in there and actually shut them down. Don't start with last year's budget as the baseline and then try to massage it into place. No, start with zero as the baseline and ask what's actually necessary. This isn't controversial. This is common sense. Rescind the unconstitutional federal regulations that came from that deep state that Congress never actually passed. Those are unconstitutional. So we can drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear energy again in this country. That's how we grow this economy. These aren't black ideas or white ideas. These aren't even Democrat ideas or Republican ideas. These are American ideals that we fought a revolution to secure in this country. The basic idea that we have elections we can trust and believe in. Single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday with paper ballots, government-issued voter ID to match the voter file, and yes, English as the sole language that appears on a ballot. This shouldn't be, again, controversial stuff. This is common sense. We've lost those common ideals. We've lost them because we've been taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways that we are really the same as Americans, bound by that common set of ideals. I believe deep in my heart that those ideals still exist. I'm running for president to revive them. E pluribus unum. It's what on the back of every one of our coins. It's etched in there. It means from many, one. That's what we've lost. And here's how we're going to get it back. It's going to be by all of us, not just me, all of us, every single one of us, starting to speak the truth in the open again. Say in public what you will say in private at the dinner table. Say it with a spine. Say it with conviction. Say it with respect. But part of respect is that you respect your neighbor enough to tell him what you actually think. That's what this campaign is about. Speaking the truth, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. Speaking the truth, not just to the other side, but to our own side right here in the Republican Party. There's a reason why I'm the only candidate in this race who can even touch certain topics. The carbon capture pipeline that's making its way across half of this state, using eminent domain to seize the land of innocent farmers who don't want that pipeline in their backyard. Why am I the only candidate who can actually touch this topic? To tell you that it's based on a climate change agenda that, yes, I will tell you, is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. That Ronna McDaniel, the failed chairwoman of the RNC, needs to step aside after 5 failed years of leadership. Why can nobody else stand up and just tell you the truth? That I'll pardon peaceful protesters from January 6th on my first day in office, because that's what it means to stand for one standard of the rule of law for all Americans. Ask yourself why. I'm a newcomer to this game, believe me. I knew it was going to be bad before I came in. I'm a businessman. I realized I was wrong. It is far dirtier than we expected, than we ever imagined. At the federal level now, every politician basically dances to the tune of their biggest donor. It's a fact. It's like a law of nature. And in my case, that biggest donor is me. I'm not dancing to somebody else's tune. I refuse to be somebody else's circus monkey, a pawn on a chessboard. That's how the game is played. It's not how I'm playing it. I don't report to them. I report to you, the people of this country. And if you want somebody who's going to get in there and speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. The things I'm saying, they're controversial not because they are false, but because they are true. 10 years ago, the things in that pamphlet in your hands, you probably would have shooed me out of here saying that this is too obvious. Why are you saying this? Today, CNN or whoever will shoo me out because these are too controversial to say in public that God is real. That there are two genders, that fossil fuels are a requirement for human prosperity, that reverse racism is racism, that an open border is not a border, that parents determine the education of their children, that the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind, that capitalism lifts us up from poverty, that there are 3 branches of government in the United States, not 4, and that the U.S. Constitution is the strongest and greatest guarantor of freedom in human history. That is the truth. We fight for the truth. We stand up for the truth. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what reunited us after the Civil War. That is what won us 2 world wars and the Cold War. That is what still gives hope to the free world. And if we can revive that dream over group identity and victimhood and grievance, then nobody in the world, not a nation, not a corporation, not a virus, not China, is going to defeat us. That is what American exceptionalism is all about. And that is what we are going to revive to save this great country. Thank you for coming out this morning, guys. God bless you and your families for coming out today. God bless our great country. We will not stop until we get this job done. I want to open this up. Let's practice what we preach and have an open conversation today. We're not going to do this unless we actually take the filters off, speak openly. If I'm going to sit across the table from Xi Jinping, I might as well be ready to sit across the table from our own voters. So let me do that. And Zach, you can get the doors. Thank you.
Hey, Vivek, how are you doing?
Good to see you, man.
You've got, there's so much I want to ask you and talk to you about, but there's only one question. So, just recently, Tucker Carlson said good things about you, by the way.
Oh, good.
And
he's a good man.
He had talked with Bobby Kennedy.
Yep.
And Bobby Kennedy had said that he had had a conversation with Mike Pompeo in Las Vegas. And Mike Pompeo walked up to him and said basically, and I'm paraphrasing, that there was such a deep state at the CIA that these individuals there do not believe in democracy. Mm-hmm. So this goes to your point about the 75% head count,
yep,
kind of shutting things down. The CIA to me is scary. It's not what it's supposed to be anymore. And so if they know that and you're running for president, talk to me a little bit about that strategy and how you're going to take on such a large and powerful bureaucracy like the CIA.
Yeah, look, I think that it's with the power vested in the U.S. president by the Constitution of the United States. And I don't think you can have a president who's afraid of that if you're looking to take it on. I think we need 2 things to get this done in a president. You need, on one hand, somebody coming in from the outside with sharp elbows, willing to break glass when necessary. You know, I brought that to the debate stage. I'll bring that to Washington, D.C. That's no problem for me. And Trump brought some element of that, too. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take an outsider who also has a first personal, bone-deep understanding of the laws and the Constitution of this country. And those 2 things don't usually go together, right? You might have the academic law scholar type over here who knows the laws but isn't going to have the fortitude to see it through and execute. You might have, I think Trump brought this, some businessman-like qualities, but they duped him. They said you can't do X, Y, and Z. You can't fire those civil service employees because of civil service protections. Well, read the law. Those civil service protections do not apply to mass firings. And mass layoffs are absolutely what I am bringing to the D.C. bureaucracy. So take somebody who understands both of those things. Those 2 things don't go together, usually. That's what pulled me into this race. And my faith teaches me God puts each of us here for a purpose. That our God-given gifts, each of us has them. It's our duty to use those to achieve the maximum positive that we can in the short time we're given. So that's what pulled me in. I think that's what it's going to take. We haven't had that in a long time. Yeah, Trump that came in as an outsider with the right spirit. He rolled over that log. We saw what crawled out. I'm bringing the pesticide. I mean, that's why I'm in this. And it's going to take somebody who's grounded firmly, unshakably in the Constitution. Article 2 of the Constitution says, the executive power of the United States shall be vested in a president. not 100 different executive agencies, in a president. I know that if somebody works for you and you can't fire them, that means they don't work for you. It means you work for them because you're responsible for what they do without any authority to actually change it. And I refuse to be that hollowed out husk of a puppet sitting in the White House. That's what we have today. But it's not a Republican versus Democrat point. It's deeper than that. The people who we elect to run the government today, they are no longer the ones who actually run the government. That's a bastardization of what our constitutional republic was supposed to be all about. That's old world Europe that was skeptical of we the people. We the people say no to that vision. In 1776, that's what we fought a revolution to secure, that for better or worse, it's a key part of that, for better or worse, we the people would decide how we settle the differences from climate change to national security versus freedom trade-offs to racial injustice, whatever it is. We the people settle those differences. That's what I stand for as your next president. And so, are we going to buckle to the force of that? No, you got to move quickly. And we're going to get half of that headcount reduction done in the first month. You got to make it tractable enough to get your arms around it. I'll tell you how it's got to work. Something like this. On day one, if your Social Security number ends in an odd number, you're out. If it's an even number, you're in. Boom. Day two, the federal bureaucracy is half its size, and I promise you the sun will still rise in the east and set in the west. Not a thing is going to break or malfunction. And you got it under control right there. Now, it has to be done like that because otherwise the civil service rules will allow them to sue you, to say it was political retaliation of those people sitting at the FBI or CIA or whatever. It was civil rights violation, disparate impact. No, if it's a large mass indiscriminate layoff, that's just step one. Then you bring out the chisel after that. That's the way you got to move. Both because the law requires it and because if you wait too long, you go to strike the swamp strikes back. Most presidents start with their legislative agenda, going through Congress. That's a mistake. That's designed not to work. It's designed to go slowly. I'm going the other way around. Reform the executive branch of the government. That's my top job getting in there. We'll then have the success we deliver across this country, and we'll see economic growth as a result of that. Most of those regulations come from the toxic executive branch. Then we move to phase two, where we drive that legislative agenda. So I'm doing this very differently. That's what it's going to take. And anybody else who tells you they're going to incrementally reform this or that, or fire Christopher Wray, you'll hear a lot of Republicans. They practice with different levels of performative vigor. Fire Christopher Wray. It doesn't matter. You get James Comey 2.0. You're missing the point. You've lost the plot, unless that's actually part of the point, which I think is part of what goes on in the Republican Party as well. Performative theatrics to avoid doing the actual thing that needs to be done. I think, Joe Biden's not really the president. It's why I don't spend a lot of time bashing him. He's a puppet for the managerial class. And I've become, I think as I've become, a little bit more perceptive to what's actually going on, the deeper I get into this, the more cynical I am about what's going on too. I even, as of recently, months ago, I would have told you that they're getting ready to move Biden out of the way. That's why you're hearing about the documents case now coming from that same deep state, CIA to FBI, the national security apparatus. The puppet masters of law use for their puppet. That's what we're seeing. So you start to hear about this Biden documents case back from when he was a U.S. Senator. Why are you only hearing about that now? Or the Hunter Biden issues, which came up 7 years ago. Why are you only hearing about it now? So they're starting to move their little puppet out of the way. And I thought it's going to be Gavin Newsom or Michelle Obama. It's actually even more devious than that. It's hiding in plain sight, actually. You got to open your eyes and see it, actually. And the deeper you get in this game, the more you see what's actually going on. You want me to go there? Okay, it's actually Nikki Haley, really. It's really what this is, actually. If you really want to get to the heart of what's going on, the same people who were funding the lawsuits to keep Trump off the ballot. Reid Hoffman, right? The whole game, and the Republican Party, we're here, including the MAGA and America First Base, right here. It pains me watching it happen before plain sight. They're not going to let him win. By hell or high water, they will not let this happen, right? But some ways, you need a more reliable interest, even than Biden, to advance the goals of the, I would say, national security, military-industrial complex for a long time. So the very people who have been funding the lawsuits to keep Trump off the ballot, they're not propping up Biden now. I mean, Reid Hoffman, George Soros Jr. in the Democratic Party, Larry Fink, they're not supporting Biden. They're actually going the other direction. That's the way this this game is far more devious, right? And so the other side's always one step ahead. And then they give us these little trinkets to distract the Republicans. You know, men swimming with women in the swimming sports competitions, act outraged about that. That's a distraction. I mean, I'm dead set against that as much as anybody. I was first describing this stuff in my book, Woke Inc., but it's a distraction from the reality of what's going on. Right? Even the Republican versus Democrat stuff. Is it going to be Gavin Newsom? Even me. I thought that for a while. We're asking the wrong question. See, the things that they call the conspiracy theories, it's not conspiracy theory, it's emergent reality. It's staring you in the face. But it's so obviously staring you in the face that you miss it. It's far more devious. I mean, the great replacement theory, when I talked about that in the debate stage several weeks ago, just look at what's happening in Eagle Pass, Texas. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just an emergent reality that this is part of the Democratic Party's platform and path to lasting electoral victories in this country. And so I think what they're anyway planning for here is they've got exactly who they want. It just happens to be in the avatar of the Republican Party, right? Support the wars in Ukraine and other parts of the world. Keep the gravy train running. That's what's needed, reliably. An interest who can do that. Censor some stuff here at home. Get your government IDs, tie it to your social media accounts. Great. Who needs Democrats when you have certain Republicans who can do that? Because then actually the Republicans will actually be duped into thinking that they were actually fighting the fight when in fact they're just propping up the very thing that you wanted all along. That's the way this game is played. And so, anyway, you mark my words. And I think this is important. People in our movement need to understand this. Don't fall into their trap. 3 months from now, 4 months from now, we're in March, April of this year. By hell or high water, this system is not going to let Trump win. Mao Zedong had an old expression. They're selling you the rope today that they'll use to hang you tomorrow. That's what they're doing now, leading us down that path. And I don't think Trump sees it. I don't think a lot of people supporting him right now see it. Don't fall into that trap. And so I think it's going to take somebody who understands exactly what's going on, firmly rooted in the Constitution, to see this through, or else we're actually going to have our own hands tied behind our back in a game of our own making, thinking this is about Republicans versus Democrats. It's not. It's about that permanent state, not just in the CIA, but in every part of that deep state apparatus. And so, anyway, I wasn't planning to go here, but you pulled me in, and I'm not going to hold myself back either. Yeah.
It seems like I have a hard time following that up with any questions because, 100% does everything else that I think any of us could ask about this truly pales in comparison to what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the whole game.
Yeah,
so that's the ball game right there.
State is cleaned out of there, and the people take back control of the country. I think a lot of these other things that you're standing for will iron themselves out.
Yes.
Their identity again. So with that being said,
yep.
and the preface of literally everything else pales in comparison to what we're dealing with right now. I do have instructions from my kids who are teenagers taking their finals right now and could not be here to ask you questions on 3 topics.
Okay.
So we watch a lot of your other town halls and we watch the debates. And the 3 things that they asked me to present to you and they want to hear you talk on is what is your plan for educational reform? We know that you stand by parents' choice. I do. Which is fantastic. But beyond that, beyond just introducing parents' choice in education, what other ideas do you have around educational reform?
Sure.
And then the war on drugs.
Okay.
Which has failed miserably for decades. How do you plan to tackle our drug crisis?
Yep.
And then the poverty level that we are seeing right now. How do you plan to raise those up out of poverty to start tackling our homeless situation? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that I think is tied back to the war on drugs too. Mm-hmm.
Part of it, yeah. I think there's deeper symptoms. All 3 of those are symptoms of something deeper going on. So just some three small questions. Here's just 3 quick questions right there. Some education, some poverty, and some and some drug policy stuff. Yeah. So
but I promised my kids that
that's good. No, you kept your promise, and I'll
they wanted to hear you
Tell them thank you. I appreciate that. Young people being engaged enough to care enough to tell you to ask that. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. So I'll go quickly. I mean, we could spend a whole day on each of these, obviously. Educational policy, what can I do as the U.S. president? Shut down the U.S. Department of Education. Return that money back to parents. $80 billion flown back to localities across this country. That's the head of the snake. They're using our money to tell, effectively, local public schools that you can't get that money unless you adopt toxic racial and gender ideologies. Well, that needs to shut down, and I can do that. That reports to me. Trump put Betsy DeVos on top and said, reform it. That doesn't work. You got to shut it down. I mean, right now, it's bigger and badder than it ever once was. You strike the swamp strikes back. Even these questions trace back to the same question as before. I think you need somebody who's bringing the pesticide. Okay, and I think that if Trump went as far as he was going to go, we got to go to the next level times 3 here. Shut it down. $80 billion to parents across the country. Now, I think we need to get rid of teachers' unions at the local level, because so that those public schools can then compete with those private schools when parents actually choose. There's good data that the public schools then actually perform better than they are today, even if there's choice, parental choice in that same region. Then you get rid of the teachers' unions, then they'll really level up. My view is part of this is also transparency to allow parents to make those choices. If you're going to teach it in the classroom, put it on the internet. If you don't want to put it on the internet, you shouldn't be teaching it in the classroom. All right? And I think that we need merit-based pay. Part of the reason we're not even in the top 10 for reading, writing, and math in global standards of the developed world is that we don't have merit-based pay at all for teachers. So get rid of the teachers' unions. The best teachers, you could argue, should be getting paid more than they are today. Almost easily argue they should be. And the worst ones should be fired, but the teachers' unions are what's in the way there. So that gives you just a sense of educational reform. There's one more level of detail. It's a level of detail, but I'll just go ahead and go into it. I think anytime a parent switches a kid from a bad-performing school to a better-performing school, 90% of the time, that's to a school that's spending less money per student. So I think that money, that difference, should be able to travel with the kid. If you put that in kids' investment accounts, say, and just invest it according to normal standards, those kids would be graduating with a 6-figure graduation gift when they graduate from high school. It's not even close. That pays for college, or maybe they don't need to go to college. They'll go to a 1-year program and have a head start on the American dream, building a small business or whatever it is they want to do when they're 22. So anyway, that's in a nutshell, at least a bird's eye view of what educational reform looks like for me. And that's also a head start on your third question on addressing poverty. The American dream, this idea that I lived, by the way, I care about it, and it's meaningful to me. I know the thing you're supposed to do is come in here and say, the American dream is alive and well. It is not. Especially for young people right now. It is alive and hanging on for life support. That's where we are. But it can be again. And I think that if you drain actually a lot of not just the corruption, but even just the money out of that bureaucracy and put it in the hands of parents or those students and give them a head start on the American dream, which is what I'm talking about here, that actually is something that makes the American dream far more accessible to the next generation. Let's say they do go on to start that small business. What's one of the biggest obstacles for a small business? Hiring new people to fill those open positions. Well, we're paying people more money to stay at home than to go to work today. We're paying for the destruction of the nuclear family structure, which is the great foundation that we give those people. 25% of kids are born into fatherless homes today. Why? We're paying for it. We're paying single mothers more money not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, using our taxpayer dollars to do it. You're 8 times more likely to end up in poverty, 10 times more likely to end up in jail or not to graduate from high school or on drugs, which brings it back to your other question. Right answer to all of these questions, actually, from poverty to education to the war on drugs, is something more foundational. The revival of the nuclear family as the foundation for a flourishing society. That's what history teaches us. I put it right there. Nuclear family is not a bad word. And right now we're paying for policies that are hostile to that family as the foundation. So as it relates to the war on drugs, because all these questions actually, you asked 3 different questions, but they're really related to one another. Part of this is a supply side issue. Look at what's happening with fentanyl. Close that southern border. Seal it. Use our military to seal our own border. Use aquatic barriers on the Rio Grande. Don't pay another dime of foreign aid to Central America or to Mexico until they've solved their own part of this border crisis. Stop funding sanctuary cities, using our taxpayer money to break the rule of law. You shouldn't have birthright citizenship, by the way, for the kids of illegal migrants, and the incentives needed to be here illegally. Anybody who's in this country illegally should be returned to their country of origin. But a lot of that illegal migration crisis comes with the drug supply crisis right there with it. So I'll put an end to that. And by the way, this I also get to do as your commander-in-chief, not as somebody who needs to go through new legislation with Congress, and I can go through the existing legal authority to do it. So that's half the story. But there's another half to the story that we have to acknowledge, which is a demand side of this problem too. That's a mental health epidemic spreading across this country like wildfire. It goes back to that root cause of that loss of purpose and meaning. And I think half the job of the next U.S. president is to revive our national character. Answer what we actually stand for. That's half the job of the next U.S. president. And I think that's part of what we've lost. I mean, when Reagan left office in January of 1989, of all the things he could have said that he was proud of having accomplished for this country, bringing us to the near end of the Cold War, growing this economy, getting us out of stagflation, the thing he said was he was proud of reviving our national character that we lacked when he took office in 1981. And I think that, too, is at the heart of a loss of self-confidence and a mental health epidemic. Bring back mental health institutions, mental health care. We have a health care system that doesn't pay for that. We'll pay for expensive blockbuster antipsychotic drugs or antidepressants on the back end. We don't have a health care system. We have a sick care system. So there's a lot there. I mean, there's a lot in your question, so there's a lot wrapped in there in the answer. But it gets to you got to get to the root causes. Revival of the nuclear family. Stop paying people to do the opposite of what's best for them. That's not compassion. That's cruelty in the name of fighting poverty. It's where you get the welfare state that's driven both a level of dependency and a level of a mental health epidemic. So if we put an end to that, that can start with right policy. And you can tell your kids that's what I'm going to bring to the White House. I appreciate the question. Thank you very much.
One more question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I hope you don't mind. I have a specific question, so I wrote it.
That's allowed. Yeah.
To maintain military control, to maintain civilian control of the military, nominees for Secretary of Defense are supposed to have a 7-year gap between their military service and their appointment to the cabinet. President Trump and President Biden both needed waivers from Congress due to their nominees' recent service. The current Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, served on the board of Raytheon from 2017 to 2020. How would you, as president, uphold civilian control of the military with regards to your appointment of the Secretary of Defense?
And the thing I worry about is, it's a great question. And you brought the point I was going to bring up, which was Lloyd Austin's exemption was required not because he was serving directly in the military, but because he was serving people who profit from our foreign policy, Raytheon. That's why the waiver was needed. You sure there wasn't a better person we could get to run our Department of Defense than a representative of your local military contractor, Raytheon? I mean, it's shocking. I mean, even the Republican Party, I mentioned this before, you got candidates who are serving as ambassador to the UN, show up $100,000 in debt when they leave, become a military contractor, then make $8 million. We have a sickness in both political parties where our foreign policy is set by the people who make money off of selling off our foreign policy. It's not an accident then that Biden, the same person who put Lloyd Austin in that position, is the one who sold off our foreign policy in Ukraine because his son got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine, the very country that we're now sending $200 billion of our own taxpayer money to. You look at the audit of where that is, it didn't even go to even much of this fighting the war. It goes to some Ukrainian kleptocrat buying a bigger house. So I think we have those rules for a reason. I think that civilian control of our own military is essential. That's the essence of the American way. I think you have a lot of cynical interests that have sold off our foreign policy to not only make themselves rich, but to advance an ideology that I think is the wrong ideology of leadership in the United States. So I bring a different mentality to the table as commander-in-chief. My view is that, and in some ways being a father gives me my moral clarity. As a father, my sole moral duty is to my family. Well, as your next president, my sole moral duty is to you. The citizens of this country. Not another one. Not somebody else's pocketbook, not my own either. So my foreign policy is simple in that regard. Avoid World War III. declare economic independence from communist China, and then use our own national defense resources to do something that the national defense establishment views as a radical idea. Use our own national defense resources to defend and protect our own homeland in this country. Instead of using our own military to protect somebody else's border halfway around the world in Ukraine or somewhere else, use our own military to protect our own borders in this country. We're as vulnerable to cyber defenses, super EMP defenses that could take out our electric grid in a matter of days, missile defenses, border defenses. We have a porous border, space-based defenses. We're more vulnerable than we have ever been. And so that foreign policy establishment that'll try to convince you about their foreign policy experience. No, foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I don't know if you all have been watching the debates, but it was laughable to me. I was 100% confident these people had no clue. I said, what are even the regions of Ukraine you want us fighting for right now to send our own $200 billion of our taxpayer money? These people have no idea. From Nikki Haley to Chris Christie to the rest of them. I doubt John Bolton or Nikki Haley could tell, or Lindsey Graham could tell you either. That is the farce at the heart of this worldview that has infected our Republican Party for the last 25 years. And I think it is time to relegate that to the dustbins of history, to say that, yes, we have civilian control over our military. It's a specific question, but a great question. We should not want what Dwight Eisenhower warned of, the military-industrial complex, pulling the levers of power who run our own foreign policy decision-making. Comes back to that first question, which is the heart of what my candidacy is all about. Shut down that shadow government. Shut down the deep state unsparingly. Not just talking about it, not just exposing the problem. I give Trump credit for that. There's a role for that. But you got to have the fortitude, the knowledge, and the constitutional conviction to see it through and actually revive what this country was founded on in the first place. 3 co-equal branches of government accountable to us, the people. That's what we fought an American Revolution for in 1776. We lose that, that's the ball game. The threats to that come from both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party. That's a fact today. Some cases, I think that one uses the other as a Trojan horse to advance its agenda. That's what's happening right now in this election. It is going to take somebody from the outside who can't be captured by that system with fresh legs to reach and lead the new generation of Americans to the vision that our founding fathers had in mind in 1776. It is a 1776 moment right now. If you want fake incremental reform and massaging around the edges, go with somebody else. I'm not your candidate. But if you want a revival of the American Revolution, a revival of the 1776 ideals, a government that is accountable to its people, that's part of what's embedded in your question. We, the people, creating a government that's accountable to us, not the other way around. If that's what you want restored in this country, nobody's going to get this done for you in the way that I will as your next president. I don't relish the job. I promise you that. With a 3.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old, and my wife is she's pursuing her calling, saving lives every day. She's a hero. She's going to be a badass first lady, I'll tell you that. She's set a good example for young women and men across this country, for that matter. We're doing this out of our sense of duty to this country. And so that decision doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you guys. Iowa goes first for a reason. The media and the establishment in both parties, they don't want me in this race. It's not up to them. And I don't report to them. I report to you, the people of this country. Every one of your voices, your votes at that Iowa caucus, it's like the equivalent of 1 million people showing up. I think we're going to win the Iowa caucus, actually. Many of our supporters are first-time ever caucus goers. Many of them have been, but they're non-traditional, so they haven't been polled. I think we're going to deliver a shock on January 15th. I think we're going to win the Iowa caucus. And I think the same reason why we win the Iowa caucus is why we're going to win the general election in a landslide. Because for me, it's really not about Republicans and Democrats. I'm not just saying that as an electoral trick to win next year in the general. I just think that's the truth. It's really not about Republicans versus Democrats. Are you pro-American? Do you share those 1776 ideals that set our country into motion? If you do, then we're on the same team. And if you're not, let's talk about it. But 80% of this in this country are on the same side of this, and 20% on the other side are actually people younger than me who never learned those ideals in the first place. We're going to bring them along too. So that's what's my accountability to deliver for you. You make me your nominee, I deliver you a landslide. Not only do I deliver you a landslide, we revive the self-governing constitutional republic that we have lost. We revive the ideals that would make our founding fathers proud rather than ashamed as they are today. And if we do that, then we don't have to anymore be this nation in decline. We don't have to be ancient Rome at the end of a rotting empire as we're taught to believe we are today. I think the truth is, as a nation, we're a little bit like you. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking? 22. We're doing this for your generation. As a nation, we're really a little young, actually. Going through our own version of our adolescence. Figuring out who we're going to be when we grow up. And when you view it that way, it makes sense again, actually. You go through that adolescence, you go through that identity crisis. You lose your way a little bit. You do some stupid things at times. I don't know about you, but I did. But we are stronger for it when we get to our adulthood on the other side. So no, I don't think we have to be that nation in decline. I think we still can be a nation in our ascent. Maybe even the early stages of our ascent, actually, if you see it this way. Maybe we're not even at base camp. That's the way I see it. Still on our way to that country where we will look our kids in the eye and tell them and mean it that the United States of America is still the nation where no matter who you are or where your parents came from or what your skin color is, you get ahead in this country with your own hard work, your own commitment, your own dedication. And that you know what? You are free to speak your minds at every step of the way. That is the American dream. That is what we are running to. And with your help, in about 30 days, with your help, that's what we're going to revive to save our great country. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. God bless you. God bless our United States of America. Thank you. Thank you. It's good seeing you.
Real quick, everybody, please grab a caucus card and sign it. We've got people, staff members around.
So
we really need your help. January 15th, 30 minutes of your lives.
Yes. Can I just address this to the group, actually?
Yeah, so please, sign a caucus card.
One more. I got an important question I didn't take. I got to take it. We're done, but we're not done quite. And they say, there's like political malpractice. You have an ending to your talk, and then everybody's, ready to sign the caucus card, and then, no. But you asked such a good question. Thank you. What's your name? Pam. You want to just ask it to me? Because I think other people may have it too.
Okay, sure. So we are Christians who believe that Jesus is the only God, the only way you get to heaven.
Yeah.
And that truth only comes from the Christian Bible, the Christian God. So why should we vote for you?
Yes, thank you.
Because we're supposed to vote for people who fear on God.
Yes. So I fear the one true God. That's what I believe. But let me address your question. And I think it's really important to have clarity on this, at least for me. I'm running for president. And I think it's going to take presidents and pastors to each play their role in reviving our country. But I'm swearing an oath to the Constitution. And I have clarity on what that means. That being said, my faith is what leads me to this journey. And so, since you asked the question, I thought I might as well share it with the group because others may have had the same question too. I'd love to just tell you a word about my faith because it's important to me. I'm Hindu, which is different than the traditional Christian background of people who have run for president in the past. But I can also tell you this with confidence. I was educated in Christian schools. I've read the Bible, St. Xavier in Cincinnati. And so I can tell you this with confidence. We share the same value set in common. The values that this country was founded on. So my faith teaches me there's one true God. That he puts us here for a purpose. That it's our moral duty to realize that purpose. That God works through us in different ways. But we're still equal. Because God resides in each of us. Or as I was taught in St. X, because we're equal in the eyes of God. Now, I had what you would call not a traditional upbringing, but a very traditional upbringing. My parents taught me family is the foundation. Marriage is sacred. Actually, my parents taught me marriage is between a man and a woman. That abstinence before marriage is the way to go. That adultery is wrong. That the good things in life involve a sacrifice. Divorce isn't some option you select off a menu when things go wrong. It's not just about this life, it's about the eternal life. So I get to St. X High School. I'm 14 years old in 9th grade, and we read the 10 Commandments. It's interesting. I don't know how many people out there are familiar with the 10 Commandments anymore. What do they say? There's one true God. Don't take his name in vain. Observe the Sabbath. Honor your parents. That was a big one for me. Don't kill. My faith also leads me to my pro-life views. Don't kill, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't covet. It didn't feel like I was reading these values for the first time. And at the age of 14, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking? Is this your mom?
Yeah.
13? 14, same age as me, I was wondering. Yeah, I mean, when I read these values at the age of 14, when I read the 10 Commandments for the first time, that's when it hit me that these values don't belong to Hindus. They're the values I was raised in. They don't belong to one faith. They belong to God. They are the values this nation was founded on. They look like strange values today. I mean, those are my values I was raised in. Are those foreign values? Are those strange values? I don't think so. You're taught to believe that on TV or in the movie theater or a DEI training session at your company, but they're not foreign values to most of us, and they haven't been foreign to most of our country's history. And so anyway, to bring it back to your question, would I be the best president to spread Christianity through this country? No, I wouldn't. For a lot of reasons, but among them, that's not the job of the U.S. president. But as your next president, will I stand for those values more strongly than anybody else has in a generation for this country? You're darn right I will. Will I swear an oath to that Constitution in the same way that I had that constitutional conviction that caused me to shut down that deep state, to swear an oath to that Constitution and keep the First Amendment of religious liberty in this country? So every pastor can do their job without fear of what the IRS is going to do to them or without fear of being muzzled. You're darn right I will. And have Christian conservatives who have led this country done a very good job of protecting that? No, they haven't. Or else we wouldn't be having to have this conversation. We wouldn't be where we are. And we do live in a religiously pluralistic country, and I think that we would want people of multiple different faiths to still feel confident to stand for those values. And so especially as somebody who's different in a lot of ways, including my age. I'm the youngest person ever to run for U.S. president as a Republican. I'm 38. Now, Thomas Jefferson, he was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. And so we have a tradition of young men. He was a deist, actually. People forget this about Jefferson. He made the Jefferson Bible by cutting out the parts of the New Testament with a razor blade, glued them together. That spoke to him, the spiritual parts, but he didn't actually abide by much of the teachings of the New Testament, but he made the Jefferson Bible out of what spoke to him. He was a deist, the guy who signed the Declaration of Independence. He was 33. As a 38-year-old guy with a slightly different background, I view it as my responsibility to make faith and patriotism and hard work and family cool again, actually, for the next generation. And I think I can do that in a way that others can't and haven't. And I'll tell you, core teaching of my faith, core teaching is that we don't get to choose who God works through. God chooses who God works through. So anyway, I'm at St. X High School. We get further through that Old Testament, a little further along. We get to the book of Isaiah, where God chose Cyrus, a Gentile, all the way in Persia, to lead the Jews back to the promised land. So we don't choose who God works through. God chooses who God works through. I'm not qualified to be your pastor, but I believe I am best qualified to be your president and swear an oath to that Constitution that is still made for a moral people. And I will stand for those moral values that our country is founded on, that we've been taught to apologize for, restore religious freedom and religious liberty. That's part of our national revival too. And sometimes, if things haven't really happened when they've been done a traditional way, I think sometimes, for me, I believe God is working through me. I believe God works through all of us. And I want you to use me as your instrument, as your next president, in representing those values, even if my background on paper is a little different. And the politician thing to do is to change my name to Vic or Vicky and pretend to be a Christian. And, I'm always going to be frank with you in the honesty. My faith is what leads me to this journey, but I think it's going to equip me to better revive the shared values that we have lost in this country, to restore purpose in that next generation. We're on a religious topic. It's when the Israelites, they're lost. They've escaped the Pharaoh. They're gone. They're free. They're lost in the wilderness, yet to find the promised land. That is when they say, we want to go back and be ruled by the Pharaoh. That's where we are right now in America. We're lost in the wilderness. And I believe it's my role and responsibility and capability to lead us to where we need to go in the next step of our journey as a nation, so that pastors and parents and teachers can each play their role in reviving our country too. Such an important question, I couldn't skip it, so thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Would you like a picture? Take a picture? Thank you. What's your name? What's it? Michaela. Good to see you. Beautiful name. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. We'd love that. Yeah, I was thinking of Michaela. Oh, you want to come on? We can do it as a family?
30 minutes will change the world. Thank you.
Can you boys get in there, Drew, so I can get a picture?
Can I take it with you?
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. So I'm actually just curious from your vantage point. Does that work for you?
It does.
The idea of
because
having
Cyrus
separate.
Is why I would have voted for Trump, because he really was.
Is that right? People brought that up. Yeah, I mean, if you voted for
Cyrus,
well, if you voted for Trump because he was a Christian, then I understand. But if you voted for Trump because you thought he'd be a good president.
Well, we felt like he was a Cyrus. That God could, like you said, could work through anyone. So.
I believe God works through each of us, and I believe we're doing our part. I think it may be a little different from Trump, and I don't mince words, and candor is my strength and weakness, but I think I will stand for those values with more moral authority, I guess I would say. I want you to be able to look. Are these your kids?
Yeah.
I'm a father of 2 sons too, and we raised them the same way. I want you to be able to look them in the eye and tell them that I want you to grow up and be like him. And I want you to be able to say that in good conscience without having to wince or hedge or stutter as you say it. And hold me to a higher standard than you held Trump.
Okay.
That's what I'll say.
I told them you're a really good speaker. They're going to enjoy it.
Well, thank you guys for coming, guys. Young guys,
really
I appreciate it.
your ideas.
Thank you.
I feel like you have what it takes to get it done.
Thank you. I appreciate your vote of confidence, guys, and thank you for coming. We're doing it for you. Take care.
Thank you so much for
Thank you. What's your name, brother?
Dennis.
Dennis. It's good to see you.
I appreciate your time and effort coming here
Thank
a second time.
Oh, I love this place. Yeah.
Lord bless you. I have a...
Pray for our family. We would be grateful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
How can we pray for you? What's
For our safety.
Okay.
For our clarity,
Okay.
that I may speak the words that need to be spoken when they need to be spoken.
Yeah,
If you
you
pray
are.
for that, I will be grateful.
You are. I have a niece in Taiwan. I'm concerned about her.
Yeah.
As
I've said that we
as
will defend
president.
Taiwan.
Will you?
I'm the only person who said that, actually, with clarity. Ukraine is not Taiwan. Taiwan is self-interested, but it relates to the U.S.'s self-interest. That's why she's presumably there.
Because the red wave is watching what's happening in
Absolutely.
Ukraine and Gaza Strip.
Well, but actually, it's the other way around. China's more likely to go after Taiwan if Russia's in their camp.
Yeah.
In my end of the Ukraine war, I would pull Russia apart from China. Then China's going to have to think twice before going after Taiwan. So actually, my strategy is the likeliest to deter China from going after Taiwan. And I've also been clear that we will defend Taiwan. That's different than everybody else in this race. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Hey, guys.
Hello, I'm Leah.
Hey, Leah. Thank you for coming out. How old are you guys?
Colin, 19.
You guys can vote.
Today's my birthday, actually.
Oh, happy birthday. How old are you today?
19 as well.
19? Awesome.
Yeah.
Come out to the Iowa Caucus, guys, on January 15th. Young people don't come. We'll shock the world if you guys come. I really mean that.
Thank you. I really appreciate you speaking.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming here. Bring as many people in your generation out. That's what we need.
A really short question?
Yeah.
Just any opinions on student debt in America?
Yes. I think that college should have never been as expensive as it was. It's a crime that it was as expensive as it was. Purdue has kept their tuition flat because they didn't have a proliferation of the deans. And then also we need more paths to the American dream than four-year college education. 1-year and 2-year programs for those for whom it's right. And I think dischargeability in bankruptcy is a reasonable way to go. I don't think forgiveness is a way to go because it penalizes the people who repaid it. So I could give you a whole day long answer on that, but I think that's what I would say. Make education and achievement of the American dream more affordable and more accessible. And you have a lot of debt on your shoulders that you didn't know you had, which is the national debt. It's your generation that's going to bear it. $200,000 of debt on your shoulder. And by the way, you don't want somebody else's gun on your shoulder fighting somebody else's war. And if there's one president who can relieve you of both of those things, that's me. I'm focused on that, doing it for your generation in a way that everybody else is going to be dead and gone by the time that happens. And I'm not going to be here to see that. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the questions, guys. Spread the message. Thank you. Hey, good to see you, man.
Good man.
Thank you,
awesome.
brother.
Awesome. You want to take a picture real quick?
Let's get a picture. Thank you, man.
You bet. I've been following you since you announced.
Thank you, man.
And everything.
You spread the messages. I'm counting on people like
I'm
you.
actually from Missouri.
Oh, you are?
So we can't wait for Super Tuesday.
But even if you know people,
yeah.
Iowans,
Oh, yeah.
Iowans here.
We're
Are you
calling
from Iowa or are
everybody.
you from Missouri?
I'm from Missouri.
Yeah, thank you for coming up, guys.
But we're going to get you.
Iowa's the key for us.
Yeah.
So help get our fellow Iowans out. That's appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We're behind
I
you.
appreciate it, man.
Hey,
Thank you.
Hey, we call you in Missouri, we call you MAGA Swami.
I love that.
MAGA Swami.
That's funny. Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Daryl.
Daryl, good to see you.
Would have loved to have asked you a half dozen questions, but that's the way it
Well, here we
goes.
are. No,
You're
thank
a
you.
man of political courage, so
Thank you.
I'm going to vote for you.
I appreciate it, Daryl.
Even
It
if
means
I
a
don't
lot.
agree with everything you're selling.
You don't have to agree with 100% of what somebody says. That's my view. I'll tell you what I believe 100% of the time. That's my deal.
Yeah, you're a great candidate, and
Thank you, Daryl.
I'm one of those feds that's going to lose a job when you get elected. So if you need a U.S. trade rep, I'm going to.
Oh, I think we will, because we got to reshuffle some and use that skill set in other ways, or a bunch of my friends in the business world.
For you.
Thank you. What do you do?
I'm a statistician.
You're a statistician.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
can tell you,
Numbers.
From my industries that I've been in, we couldn't find good statisticians. So you're going to actually bring that to the private sector.
I'll probably make more money.
That'd be, you probably will, and actually, you know,
Take care. Nice to meet you.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Spread the message here. Thank you. Hey guys. Hey.
Asa.
Asa?
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
thank you for being
your
here.
answer.
I'd love to have you at the caucus.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means a lot.
I want to say.
You got a good question?
Yeah, I'd
Can
love
we
a
get a picture?
photo with you. Austin had been in the military from 2015, so the 7-year gap
That was why.
in between. Yeah.
It's a good question, though.
Thank you
asked.
very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your
It's
answer.
foundational. It's what the founding fathers wanted.
Absolutely.
Just keep that alive.
There's no requirement for a waiver on defense security members. So, like, members in the
I see.
defense industry don't have a requirement.
Oh, they don't. Oh, I see.
He-
I see. It's just okay.
Not to correct you, but it was because he was
Within the
gap.
technically 7-year window. Okay.
Absolutely. No,
Well, either way,
I
I
really
don't.
appreciate your
I don't think
answer.
it's good for the defense industry folks to be occupying those positions. Though.
Absolutely,
That's where I'm
yeah.
coming from. So
Yeah.
thank you.
I feel
It's
comfortable.
actually
I
useful
really
for me to
appreciate
know.
it. Thank you very much.
Hey, spread the message in this community. You around here?
Yeah, I'm from Knoxville.
Have you
right
done
over.
Have you done the caucus before?
I've gone before, yeah.
Good.
Absolutely. I'm a
Come
big
out this
fan.
time and bring as many people as you can. You're smart. You have if you want to be a precinct captain for us, you can speak at the caucus. I can tell you have an intellect about you, and that's kind of our approach to government is having.
Yeah.
So if you're open to that.
Yeah, I really appreciate
Love
it.
that.
I'll pick up
Thank you.
all the paperwork.
Thank
I can,
you.
all the-
Thank you.
Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much.
it. Thanks again,
Thanks
man.
again.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey.
Terry Clavin. I teach philosophy and religion at
Oh, you
Central
do?
College.
Oh, great.
So I
Thank
appreciate
you.
so much the arguments you're making. So just keep at it.
Thank you. We will. Thank
Yeah,
you. I appreciate it.
takes
You're
a
doing
lot of
important work,
energy.
passing that on to
Thanks
the
very
next
much.
generation. Philosophy
Yeah, I
and
do a lot
religion.
of work in Middle Eastern studies. I've been a Fulbright
Have you done
scholar.
the Iowa caucus before?
Yeah,
Good.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll pass it on to the next generation
Okay,
too.
thanks very much. Yeah,
Pass
I
your
do my
wisdom.
best.
They need it.
Take care.
They need the direction. And bring as many people
God
as you
bless.
can on the
Yeah.
15th. Thank
Can
you.
you sign my hat?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely, man. Thank you. Happy to. What's your name?
Oh, Josiah.
Josiah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, man. Hey.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks. My pleasure, dude.
Yeah. I want you to know that it's not a hindrance being different. It's actually in your favor.
I think it can be, because it can help us revive this country in a different way.
Right.
It can be.
You're a constitutionalist.
Yes.
I'm a constitutionalist.
Thank you.
Our country is super polarized, and so I think that you have a gift in uniting people that see things differently than you do.
Thank you.
And so
we will use the gifts God has given us to do our part.
Right.
And so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Go
man.
all the way.
Thank you. With your help, we will. Do you live around here?
I do. Yeah, I'm a Pella resident.
Awesome. You done the caucus before?
I have.
Good. We'll spread the message in this community, and we're
All
going to
right.
do our part.
Good to meet you.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm John. Nice
John.
to meet you.
It's good to see you, John. Thank you.
I appreciate much of what you're saying. The only thing I have a question on
Yeah.
is he's come across a little bit as an isolationist.
It's a good question, because I get labeled that way sometimes too. Far from it. I'm the only person who said we will defend Taiwan, actually, because I look at every conflict through the lens of American interest. Sometimes that means less involvement, sometimes it means more involvement.
Right.
But everything comes down to what advances the American interest. So that's a George Washington vision, not an isolationist.
Okay. And I didn't want to put that title on you.
No. It's good feedback.
Going.
It's good feedback, yep.
What about in the Middle East and Israel?
Yeah, so I think that actually the most pro-Israel policy for us and the most pro-American policy for us are the same, which is give Israel the diplomatic license to do what it needs to do. Right now, you got the UN, the EU, the US second-guessing what they do. I think it's worse when we get half in, half out intervene. And so I don't think we should engage militarily, but I think we should give them a diplomatic Iron Dome, such that the UN, the EU, and frankly, even you see it from the US now, second-guessing their decisions. That's better for Israel and better for the United States. That's David Ben-Gurion's founding vision for Israel, actually.
How do we avoid that second-guessing tendency within our own country? With the change of administrations on a regular basis, things can change.
Yeah. And so, part of this is, I don't agree with every decision a prior administration has made, but I don't get to pick and choose when I'm commander-in-chief. So would I have our troops in Syria and Iraq? No, I wouldn't. But if they are there and I'm taking over as commander-in-chief, if you hit us, we will hit you back 10 times harder. And I think that's the way it takes a commander-in-chief. I can't just throw my hands and gripe about what somebody else did. I'm leading this nation, and we start with the hands that were dealt. So that's the way I would look at it, and that's, I think, a mistake some presidents would say, and I think Trump brought some of this, which is, they did it wrong. You're not going to hear me sitting when I'm in the White House blaming somebody else that came before me. At that point, I own the accountability, and we'll make the decisions with the hand we've been dealt.
All right.
Does that make sense to you?
Thank you, and good luck.
So even if our troops, if I wouldn't have put them there, if you hit our troops, we'll hit you back 10 times harder, and I'll stick to that as well. Because that's what it means to stand for this country.
All right. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We'd love to have your support. I don't know if you've been to the caucus before.
I have caucused and will definitely be there, so thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you. Hey, man. It's good to see
Jonathan.
you.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Good to see you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
You got to come
so
to that
much.
caucus.
I am. Yep, I'm definitely.
You're our generation, man.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, and I am your age too.
Oh, you are.
Yeah,
thank you for coming.
Thank you for answering
Tell your kids. Tell your
Yes,
kids.
absolutely.
Just bring them out on January 15th. Yes,
Sure,
yeah.
with you, because
Just-
they really want to be able to. They're not old enough to vote, but we
Just
both
come out on
support-
January
we all
15th.
support you. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Come out on January 15th.
Will do. Thank you
and
so
bring
much.
as many people as you can. Tell them. How old are they?
They're 15.
Tell them thank you. Tell them thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
for sharing your vision
Thank
and
you,
your
man.
time with us. And
Thank you, brother.
I hope you go all the way for sure.
With your help, we will,
Yeah,
man.
for
That's how we're
sure.
doing this, bottom up.
For sure.
You get 100 people in this community to come out for us to caucus.
Yep.
We're gonna win this thing.
You bet.
Yeah.
God
I
bless
appreciate
you
it.
and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Pray for our country and our family. We're grateful for that. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.